There's probably a lot of musicians, a lot of bands who perhaps kick themselves for not doing that. There's probably a lot of musicians, a lot of bands who perhaps kick themselves for not doing that. I think there's a lot of dreaming in music, and there's a lot of escapism in music, and I think this was about escapism on your own doorstep. And I think Alex, a lot of the time, had captured that very well. He's very clever. He's very clever with his words, and I think there's just a great sense of perhaps honesty there, and just it's certainly to people living in an English town or city, there was a tangible sense to what he was singing about.
He talks about subjects that we all understand, or we all can imagine. Life up north, it's hard, it's tough. Working in a factory, you fall in love with a girl, she lives somewhere. All these issues that everyone has to deal with every day. But I think it's the way he puts them down on paper. I think the way that the words, he's a real wordsmith. I think he makes you laugh with his songs. I think he turns those gritty, day-to-day, mundane issues into a very fun story. And who doesn't like a good story? Beyond that, they are beyond the lyrics. They are just bloody good tunes, and I think that's what draws people in, even if they've not got the lyrics straight away. They like the music, so it's it works on so many levels, and that's why it's a success. I would say Alex Turner is definitely a great songwriter in the making. I think he may even be there now. I know he's still a young lad, and he's only got 2 albums under his belt and a handful of singles, but I think he's proved that he has got an incredible turn of phrase. I think he knows exactly what words to use, how to make people laugh, how to make people enjoy the story he's telling. I think he's only going to get better. I think what he can prove himself to be, and is already in the process of doing, is certainly someone who kind of represents a generation. I think he represents a generation of witty, intelligent people, young people who like music, who don't suffer fools gladly, and I think that's something that Alex is representative of. When you've got 50,000 people, the bulk of which are singing back, arms around each other, singing back the lyrics back at the stage, and knowing every single line, I guess that makes him a great songwriter. Perhaps in the sense of Noel Gallagher is considered a great modern songwriter, because he can get an entire audience singing about every lyric. And okay, there are other bands who do that, but it's I don't know, in terms of sort of touching so many people, yeah, I think if you can pull it off a couple more times, then yeah, he'll be considered one of the greats.
There is now less hype surrounding the Arctic Monkeys, and no one will be more pleased about that than the band themselves. The 4 youngsters have emerged from the constant media glare and scrutiny from fans and journalists alike to establish themselves as one of the biggest names in the business. They have avoided overexposure, and the determination to keep control of their own destiny means that the Arctic Monkeys bandwagon won't be derailing for some time yet. The future of the Arctic Monkeys, I think, is interesting. Precarious, possibly. They've got to prove, I think, that they have still got what it takes. Album number 3, is that going to be as good as album number 2 or album number 1? Alex Turner's already working on some side projects with other people, so I think they've maybe got to keep him interested in staying with the band. I think he wants to stretch his legs. Well, what does the future hold? Whatever they want it to hold, really. It depends on them, but they're already doing it. What they just did at the Lancashire Cricket Ground, sold out 2 nights. That can definitely be likened to Oasis, when they did Nebworth. Yeah, I mean, they can go from strength to strength. I'll be interested to see where they go on their next album. But, if they continue just evolving like they are, then, future's bright. How much bigger can it get? Selling out Old Trafford Cricket Ground for an entire weekend, it doesn't get much bigger than that. I think the future for the Arctic Monkeys can almost be anything they want to be. In a certain respect, they could quite easily go wrong. It's not as if they're completely flawless, but it's a little bit early to tell. I think there's no doubt, there's no way that anyone could doubt that they have the talent and the wit and the canniness to have a very long and fruitful career.
but whether they capitalise on that, whether they even want to capitalise on that, is the question.
They're growing all the time in terms of the sounds that they're listening to, and they certainly Alex listens to a hell of a variety of music that he never used to listen to, and that's got to have an impact. So I think sound-wise, I think they've got to kind of keep evolving. But all the while you've got someone with Alex's voice, which is instantly recognisable, and they've still got their Yorkshire accents. They're always going to be the Arctic Monkeys. It's where they take that is so difficult to tell. They could do a swing album next. I hope not.